So talking, more about physical features, both phones also have a physical keyboard, and so we'll go into that. They're very different in terms of design and styling. You'll notice that the myTouch has the keys are staggered and also raised a little bit. I don't know if you can see there. They're not raised too much because they still have to be able to slide under the top layer of the phone, but they are raised a bit. A lot of people compared it to the Touch Pro 2 keyboard, and to be honest, when I first heard that, I was kind of disappointed because I personally didn't like the Touch Pro 2 keyboard. I thought the keys were too slippery, they were too hard to press, they were too firm. This keyboard is similar, but it's definitely an improvement because the keys are a little bit more sticky, so you get a little bit more traction, and also they're a little bit softer, so a little bit easier to press, and they're kind of curved a little bit too. Whereas on the Touch Pro 2, if I'm correct, they were more just flat and raised. So, and then we'll go over to the Droid, and you'll notice it's just a grid, and the keys are extremely flat. They're not raised at all, there's no doming, nothing. It's just completely flat and in a grid. Now the Droid does have this D-pad, and the myTouch has a trackpad. So, I don't like the D-pad being where it is on the Droid because it kind of just gets in the way. I have to reach over too far to get to the actual keyboard, and so I prefer on the myTouch how the trackpad is up here. So if I want to use it, I can. I don't really use it too much. I don't really use this D-pad too much either, but if I want to use it, it is a feature, but it's not in my way. I still have plenty of space on the keyboard. So, another thing that's definitely different about these two keyboards is because the Droid is in just a basic grid format, every key is the same size, except for the space bar, which is obviously longer, but the shift key is the same size, the enter, backspace, they're all the same size, whereas on the myTouch, it's more conventional, more like a basic keyboard. The shift is longer, the backspace, the enter is longer. That's one thing that everyone feels differently about with these two keyboards. But, I like that the myTouch is more domed, it's staggered, not in that grid format, and I don't have the D-pad getting in my way. Also, I'm going to talk about the virtual keyboards on these two phones because sometimes, maybe if you're doing a quick message or, you don't feel like, pulling out the physical keyboard, the virtual keyboard is something that you may use. So we'll go over to messaging and I'll show them to you. So we'll compose a new message on both phones. Again, you'll see the difference in design, styling. I talked about how the myTouch has themes. I have a particular theme right now where it makes certain icons purple. That's going to be different depending on the theme. But you do have more colors, more design, rather than just with stock Android. So we'll pull up the virtual keyboards here. You'll notice you have the stock Android keyboard on the Droid. And then on the myTouch, it actually comes with a swipe, and so the keyboard it is basically the swipe keyboard. Now, you don't have to use swipe. You can just type normally. That was an accident. You can just type normally if you want to, but of course you have swipe to use. Fox. Whereas on the Droid, it's just a basic virtual Android stock 2.1 virtual keyboard. Now, in landscape mode, I think, to me, stock Android virtual keyboard in landscape mode is wonderful. I think it's amazing. There's some people that would disagree with me, but I think it's great. I think I could use this if I didn't have a physical keyboard, or if I didn't feel like pulling it out. I could just use the virtual keyboard, and I think, to me, it's great. I'll type a quick sentence here for you guys. Jumps, there, jumps over the lazy, oops. It's hard to do this with the camera in my way. Lazy So you can see, looks like, oh, I did it perfectly, no errors. And Quick Brown Fox jumps over the lazy dog. So I think the virtual keyboard on the Droid is great. You know, and I happen to prefer it over the virtual keyboard on the myTouch because in landscape mode, it's a little bit, you know, you'll notice the space bar is like way over here. I don't really understand that. You know, obviously it's because they had to fit all of the letters in 3 rows and they just didn't want to put the space bar within the letters because, you know, a lot of people complain about that, but I would rather have the space bar in between letters than just off to the side here. So, and of course I'll show you a little bit on the swipe keyboard. Let me just delete all of that. Lazy dog, lazy dog, lazy dog. So anyway, just a quick look at the virtual keyboards. More than likely because they have physical keyboards, you're going to use the physical keyboards. But just so you know, you have the options there. The myTouch comes with swipe, which I just showed you. The Droid is just stock Android 2.1, which I still like, and I think in landscape, the Droid keyboard is definitely better than the myTouch virtual keyboard. But then in terms of physical keyboards, I think that I definitely prefer the myTouch keyboard. But that's personal opinion. So I showed you already a couple of pictures that both cameras took. They do both have a 5 megapixel camera. They also both have autofocus and a flash. However, the Droid has a dual LED flash, whereas the myTouch is just a single LED flash. So that's one advantage that you're going to have. You know, I showed you the difference in pictures. The myTouch, the screen as well as the camera seem to pick up colors bright colors a little better, whereas the Droid just seemed to focus better, seem to be just a little bit better quality pictures. So that's just depending on, you know, what you're going to prefer or what you prefer. Now the Droid has 4 times digital zoom, and the myTouch has only 1.4 times digital zoom. Now we're going to talk a little bit about processor speeds. Now neither one of these have the famed 1 gigahertz Snapdragon processor or Hummingbird processor. The myTouch has an ARM 600 megahertz processor, and the Droid has a 550 megahertz processor. So it's a little bit different. Now, you're also, along with that, it's not just about the processor in terms of speed, but another thing that's going to affect it is the network that you're on. So Motorola is using Verizon's network, or the Droid is using Verizon's network, and the myTouch is on T-Mobile's network. So I'm going to do a quick test for you guys on the web browser just to see how fast it is. So we're going to go to the browser on the stock Android browser on both phones. So we're going to go now to just Phonedog.com and do a very unscientific test, but see how each one performs. Phone.com, Phonedog.com, and we'll hit go. You'll notice they're both on 3G, and have pretty good bars on both phones right now, so you can see that. So we'll see just how long it takes. You can see the Droid is kind of in the preliminary stages of loading the page. myTouch is about halfway. myTouch is there now. And looks like the myTouch won. Yeah, just barely, you can see that. And we'll do just, a refresh again to test it out. But I will say that whenever I had problems with T-Mobile's network, whenever the myTouch has full bars, it's on 3G, it's very, very zippy whenever browsing the web. It's really quick. I don't have to worry about anything. But I did have a lot of problems with switching between 3G and Edge. I had problems where I had no data connection at all, so I was trying to test this out, and I had no data connection. You know, and just going back and forth between 3G, between Edge, having full bars, having one bar, and all in the same space. Right here on my desk, it would switch constantly. So I did have that problem, but so just a few more, you know, last minute comparisons here. Both have 3.5mm headphone jacks. The battery is a little bit different, though they lasted about the same time. The myTouch has a 13 milliamp hour battery. Get that off of there. Whereas the Droid has a 1400 milliamp hour battery, and they both lasted about a day. The Droid did happen to last a little bit longer, I'm guessing because it has a 1400 compared to a 1300, but they're both going to last you about a day, and that's with me checking my email, using Twitter, different apps, using Google Maps. So they're both going to last you about the same. They both have micro SD memory card slots. So that's pretty much it, guys. I hope I didn't skip anything. If I did, you can hit me up on Twitter, ask me any questions. Also, I'll be in the forums at phonedog.com, so just let me know if you have any questions. But that's pretty much it. It's the myTouch 3G slide from T-Mobile, the Motorola Droid from Verizon. Who wins? You know, it's kind of your pick. You know, I showed you guys the features. You guys can decide. And hopefully that covers all of it for you. Thanks, guys, for watching. Be sure and check out Phonedog.com for all the news, videos, updates, and of course today's iPhone.com Droid Dog, BeBerryDog.com. But I'm Sydney from Phonedog.com. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you guys later. We're gonna see how they blah, 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 blah.